Hello, and welcome to episode number 22 of the TEW 2020 Challenge Run. This is going to be the second week, June episode of Monday Night Raw, as we continued the build to the Vengeance pay-per-view on Saturday, week 4. So, any further ado, let's jump straight into the show.
I won't beg, break, I'm going away. Every moment's one more chance to stand up or get in the...
Zelina Vega opens the show with Andrade and Angel Garza. She says that Drew may think he's some tough champion challenging Andrade to a match at Vengeance, but Drew left a lot of details out of his little story last week. Drew didn't talk about why he never got a rematch with Andrade, and as much as he may want it to look like it's because Andrade was scared of Drew, in reality, Andrade put such a beating on Drew McIntyre that he required surgery and wasn't seen for 6 months. And now Andrade, with Angel Garza as well as herself on his side, he's an even more dangerous competitor, and he will prove that at Vengeance when he again defeats Drew McIntyre and wins the WWE Championship. So again, I know they sort of played on this on Real Life, but you could get a pay-per-view match out of this, especially because it's Andrade and he's pretty good. He could deliver a WWE title match on pay-per-view. So we're doing that here, and sort of Vegas saying, like, Drew made it seem like he was out of the corners of his art challenging Andrade, but in reality Andrade knows how to beat Drew and knows how to put him on the shelf for 6 months. And then they go into a match against Path of the Dragon, which they lose in 13-11. Tozawa pins Garza because Drew McIntyre comes out and lays out Andrade with a Claymore. So, not the best start to Raw for Zelina and her boys. Lana is backstage with Oney Lorcan, and she's screaming at him in his ear, and she's like, "How dare you hit me with that uppercut last week? I am Lana, you can't hit me, I'm a woman. How dare you?" And of course, Oney being Oney, shouts at him going, "I will uppercut whoever I want to win this title, throw him up." And he holds the title up in the air, and then basically Lana will scream at him, he'd scream louder, and they'd end up getting into a screaming match with each other. Oney would get in her face, and she'd shove him backwards, only into the path of Otis O'Neil, who rolls him up to win the 24/7 title. And he's hurrah, 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 as he runs away with the title that he was the inaugural champion of. So, just thought it would be funny to see obnoxious Lana screaming and fantastic Oney screaming in the same segment together. And Titus O'Neil has taken the title. 44 for a squash tag team match. The Viking Raiders defeat Danger Zone, Charlie Ryland, and Leroy Psycho, two very interesting looking enhancement talent here. In 6 minutes, Danger Zone takes the pin with the fallout. He gets a 30. No, Leroy Psycho gets a 30. Charlie Ryland gets a 24. And 49 and 48 for the Vikings. Seth Rollins promo. He says he's heard the words of Aleister Black last week. Now, Akam has a match with him tonight, and he's entrusting Buddy Murphy to be by his side to make sure Aleister Black is crucified. Seth and Theory, however, they have other fish to fry, and they will pledge. They will put their hands over their hearts, hands on the Seth Rollins Bible, pledge to the Messiah as they all go their separate ways with different ideals. Murphy is to accompany Akam in his match against Aleister Black, and Seth, Theory, and presumably Ruby Riott are off to fry some other fish, as Seth put it. 68, Rey Mysterio faces NXT's Isaiah Scott, just because I had run out of people that hadn't been booked on the show. Thought give him a nice opportunity to get a showcase match on Raw. Rey beats him in 13-23 with a 619. He gets a 47, Rey gets a 69. After the match, though, Rey Mysterio is celebrating his win when Seth Rollins, Theory, and Ruby come out on the stage. And Seth goes, "Rey, I don't know what you think you're doing. Last week I heard what you said. You said you respected Kevin Owens on this show because, and as you said, and I quote, full of stupid messiahs running around thinking they have a god complex. Is that all I am to you, Rey? You think I'm some stupid messiah? Now, I'll show you what this stupid messiah is capable of." Then Austin Theory would get into the ring and he'd lay Rey Mysterio out with the briefcase and then his little finisher. And he would be all proud of himself as he leaves the ring, and him and Seth and Ruby go to the back. So Seth it was like a throwaway comment I put into the promo last week with Rey, about stupid messiahs, But of course, Seth has taken because in real life he's coming out every single week and like starting on the announcers for saying stuff on commentary, so that would fit his gimmick as well. So he's got a bit of a beef with Rey Mysterio. Hopefully not too much, where we'll end with one of them having their eye ripped out on pay-per-view. Spoiler, it won't end in that. It's just Rey's got a bit of beef with Seth because he thinks he's a stupid Messiah, so we got Austin Theory to lay him out. MVP got the promo. He says Cedric and Ricochet made big mistake not accepting their offer last week, and there'll be serious consequences for pissing off the VIP Nation. You can only imagine what he has in store. In a 38, Bianca Belair defeats Nia Jax with the KOD. This advanced the women's story. I don't know why. Nia Jax isn't a part of it, and Shayna's not in the segment. And now it's going to tank because it got a 38 because I'm still using this pile of fucking shit here. She somehow outscored Bianca though, so that's great. But Bianca does get a promo. She says last week she didn't make Shayna Baszler look like the baddest bitch on Raw. She just made her look like a bitch. And if this bitch wants revenge on the real baddest bitch on Raw, you'll know where she is and she can come and find her at Vengeance. And that title will be on the line. So, yeah, Bianca's challenged the champion to a match at Vengeance for the Raw Women's title. The announcer then going over the rest of the show when Jinder Mahal approaches behind Joe with Chris Parks, who we've seen on SmackDown in real life recently. And he hands him a paper, and then Joe's like, "What is this?" And Parks is like, "Mr. Mahal has taken legal action against Mr. Joe after his assault last week, because that is no way for a supposed leader to treat one of his employees." Then Joe gets angry at Jinder, and he gets in Jinder's face before he's looking, and he looks back at the paper like, "Oh fuck, I can't beat him up because he will sue again." And he just sits down a half. Jinder sort of slaps him around the head a couple of times. But then, I didn't add it here, Joe's like, "Well, you know what I can do as your GM. I may not be able to put my hand on you because, well, I feel like I'm in my right mind to be able to do that if you're pissing me off if I'm still a trained wrestler. But I can put you in a match against the WWE Champion, Drew McIntyre, in a Backlash rematch in the main event." And then suddenly Jinder's not so cocky anymore. This gets a 63. Titus is running around with his belt and he gets caught up by R-Truth and pinned, so Truth wins the belt back, basically. Your standard 24/7 segment. No uppercutting Lana this week for these two. Just your standard roll up. R-Truth wins the belt scenario. 53. Cedric and Ricochet defeat the Peak of Physique when Ricochet pins Tony Nese with a diving double knee drop. 63 for Ricochet, 49 for Cedric, 42 for Nese, and 33 for Riddick Moss. So they get a nice win. But then it's after the match. MVP comes out on the stage and he applauds them. But like he said, they'll regret making enemies out of VIP Nation. They are jumped from behind by Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. Lashley spears Cedric through the barricade and then slams him through the announcer with a Dominator. Ricochet gets laid up with a spear as well and then knocks in the full Nelson and passes out. So big man Bobby Lashley, who took the week off last week, is back in MVP's good graces. And he's laid waste to Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. Aussie Mike got a promo. They say they feel like defeating the Viking Raiders last week earned them a shot at the Raw Tag Team titles. And that Aussie Mike will be stronger than any smoke the Prophets are offering. Bronson then steps into the frame and he says that he looks forward to Vink and Thorne's victory as he has a plan that'll have them all draped in gold. Interesting. Speaking of gold, champion versus champion match. Kevin Owens defeats Montez Ford with a pop-up powerbomb. 76 for Owens, 56 for Montez Ford. Post-match, Kevin Owens is celebrating his victory with Shane Thorne and Angelo Dawkins, and he's jumped from behind by all the members of Aussie Might. Vink and Thorne lay out the Street Profits, and then Big Bronson Breed hits the big splash on Kevin Owens, and then he looks at the US title on the floor, and then he steps on it in Kevin Owens fashion, like Owens did when he made his debut on the main roster and he stepped on John Cena's US title. And then Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink hand him a sledgehammer, and all three of them smash the United States Championship into pieces. So that should probably definitely get the attention of the champion. 40. Sugar Rush defeated the Iconics when Xia Brookside pins Billie Kay. 28 and 29 for the Sugar Rush girls. 43 for Peyton. 41 for Billie. Segment. This was really fucking good. See, this is what happens when I just rate Asuka and Kairi. Sugar Rush are celebrating when the Kabukis came out on the stage. They say they have been told by Paige, obviously from SmackDown last week, Dakota Kai called them out, and Paige has told them they will be defending their tag titles at Judgment Day against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. So that's them freed up for the pay-per-views, but next week they'll give Sugar Rush the match they want, women's tag team titles here on Monday Night Raw, which of course they accept. So next week there'll be a women's tag team title match between these two teams. Charlie Caruso catches up with Aussie Mite. They say the days of the United States Championship are over, and once Bronson Reed defeats Kevin Owens at Vengeance, the Australian Championship will be born. Ha ha ha. Do you get it? Yes. Really? A 70 for between these two? Aleister Black defeats Akam in 10:54 with the Black Mass. 68 for Aleister, 54 for Akam. And yeah, that is probably the best Akam match, at least singles match, there will ever be. Andrade's backstage, taking out his frustrations on Garza after he took the loss for them earlier on. And then Vega gets between them. She says that she knows they both feel frustrated at the loss, but we can't sort of regress. You two fought each other last week to get these feelings out of each other. We can't regress. And while Garza didn't quite pull his weight, it's not his fault. And she stops and she smiles. She's like, but no fear. If Garza can't take care of Drew, I know someone who can. And she walks off, leaving Garza and Andrade to stand, leaving Andrade and Garza behind to just look around confused at each other like, wait, do you know what she means? And they're both like, no. So Vega appears to have a plan to deal with Drew McIntyre that doesn't involve either of these two men. Then another 70, the main event, Drew McIntyre defeats Jinder Mahal with a Claymore in 70. This is not going to be the best show. I expect to lose Pop again from this. Oh! Or not. So I thought that was like the weakest show I've done, but I don't lose Pop. But again, so that means this is a fine show, which means that all that really matters now is what you thought of the show. So do let me know in the comments what you thought of the show. And I'll see you next time for SmackDown, episode number 23. See you then.